the conflict.
First thing that is important to have a common ground.
Hello and welcome. I'm Asuma Katauka and you're watching the China Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. At least 44 people were killed and 279 people reported missing after a massive fire engulfed an apartment housing estate in Hong Kong's Tai Po. The tragedy marks Hong Kong's deadliest fire in 30 years and has also renewed scrutiny over the city's high-risk bamboo scaffolding as local chief executive John Lee confirmed the loss of 37-year-old firefighter Ho Wai Ho. Chinese President Xi Jinping has sent condolences to the victims of the Hong Kong apartment building fire, and he has also urged full rescue efforts. Meanwhile, Hong Kong police have now arrested 3 construction company officials in suspicion of manslaughter charges. French President Emmanuel Macron has announced that he will be meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping during his 3-day trip to China next week. China is positioning itself to play a major role in Ukraine's post-war reconstruction, even as it remains cautious about the current peace plan, now reduced from 28 points to 19 points, amid criticism from Kyiv and Europe that it favors Russia, while Beijing sees this as an both strategic opportunity and geopolitical risk in how the deal evolves. China's top party newspaper has urged the United States to rein in Japan, warning against any moves that could revive militarism after Japanese Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi's November 7th remarks suggested that Tokyo could respond militarily to a China-Taiwan conflict. US President Donald Trump has privately urged Japanese Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi to avoid escalating tensions with China, after her remarks on November 7th triggered one of the worst diplomatic clashes with Beijing in years. The call came just after Trump's conversation with Xi Jinping, while Taiwan reiterated their stance. China has accused the US of violating the UN Charter after Washington announced a new visa policy restricting entry for Central American nationals allegedly acting on behalf of the Chinese Communist Party. A move Secretary of State Marco Rubio said was needed to protect regional stability, while Chinese embassy in Washington has condemned the policy. A bipartisan group of US lawmakers is urging the Trump administration to reject Myanmar's upcoming elections, calling them a sham meant to legitimize the China-backed junta amid ongoing violence and repression. Now we start with the breaking news. According to Chinese local media, at least 11 people have been killed and 2 others injured after a test train collided with another train in the city of Kunming. Emergency teams rushed to the site and authorities are now investigating the cause of the crash, which happened during a trial run on a local rail line. Now we move on to our next news. The US is stepping into rising tensions between China and Japan. President Donald Trump has asked Japanese Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi to avoid further escalation with Beijing after her recent comments on Taiwan triggered the sharpest diplomatic clash in years. Takaichi has told Parliament that a Chinese attack on Taiwan could prompt Japanese military action, remarks that drew a furious response from Beijing and demands for a retraction. President Trump's request came right after his call with China's President Xi Jinping, who again stressed that Taiwan's return to China is central to Beijing's world vision, a claim firmly rejected by Taipei. While China's local media has urged Washington to rein in Japan, warning against any revival of militarism. Meanwhile, officials in Tokyo say only that Trump and Takaichi discussed US-China relations. Now, for this discussion, we welcome Dr. Tomohiko Taniguchi. He's a former advisor to late Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, joins us live from Tokyo. Thank you very much, Doctor, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now,
Good to see you.
Thank you. Now, how do you see this escalating tensions between Japan and China and its U.S.'s role between them?
Well, Takaichi is not interested in further mentioning anything about Taiwan going forward because Prime Minister Takaichi merely was reactive when responded to the questions from the parliamentary floor. And she did not say that the military involvement in case of Taiwan contingency will be automatic. The Japanese legislative bill that passed the parliament under Shinzo Abe and made into law clearly stipulates when the United States and other allied forces are involved near Japan to the extent that it would pose a threat, very much a serious threat to Japan, Japan may exercise its right to defend Japan and its territory with the United States. It is not that Japan is going to defend Taiwan per se. It is Japan that is going to defend its allied powers, including the United States. That much has been well understood by the United States. So Mr. Trump may have wanted to convey what he had just heard from Xi Jinping to Takaichi, but I understand that the phone call between Trump and Takaichi was initiated by the Trump side, and it went very much friendly.
Right. And now going forward, how should Prime Minister Takaichi balance Japan's security concerns regarding Taiwan to avoid escalating tensions with China, or should she avoid escalating tensions with China?
Because she did not say anything further beyond what the Japanese law of national security says, she cannot back down, and she's not interested in making things worse. So things will go on as they have been for some time, but it'll calm down. And in the meantime, the Chinese side is disseminating fabricated messages that to say as if the Chinese citizens have been constantly attacked by the Japanese. This is the farthest from the truth.
And while U.S., as you shared that Takaichi and Trump's conversation was very friendly, does Washington risk being drawn too deeply into Japan-China regional conflict?
Well, the Japanese side did not say, if I may reiterate, that it would get involved in China-Taiwan military conflict. The Japanese may have to decide whether it should get involved in the conflict so long as the United States and its allied powers are involved in the conflict. So it's indirect. And that much, again, has been understood by the United States. And the Chinese do understand this because the law has been in place for years. And then they are flaring up this intentionally.
How do you think Taiwan should manage their stance now? As you know, we know that Taiwanese government is very supportive of Japanese stance, but China is merely acknowledging it.
Well, this is an important signal sent from Beijing to Taipei and people in Taiwan that if Taiwan, goes back and forth to the right, to the left, among the United States, Japan, and China, you will see lessons sent from the Chinese side. So it's part of the influence operation, in my view, aimed not only at Japanese citizens or the Japanese government, but also at the Taiwanese citizens. to let them know who the master is. It is China. So that's the sort of messages that China, in my view, wants to send to the Taiwanese.
Right, and last week we know that Japan did have a missile deployment in Yonaguni Island. Looking at these reactions from China and Taiwan, what do you think this reveals about competing security priorities? And to what extent is Japan's these decisions, what do you think, is this a defensive measure or a perceived escalation?
Well, the escalation, it's common knowledge worldwide, has been conducted on the Chinese side. You're looking at the military that's grown 5 times, 6 times, 10 times as large as it used to be 10 years ago. And China is deploying the 3rd mega military aircraft carrier in the South China Sea and East China Sea. So Japan must respond. Listen, envelope has been pushed always from the Chinese side.
Right. Thank you for emphasizing that and sharing that insight, Dr. Taniguchi. Please stay with us as we come back to you. Now, moving on, China has accused the U.S. of violating the United Nations Charter over a new visa policy targeting Central Americans with ties to the Beijing. The U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has announced the policy, stating it would restrict visas for Central American nationals and their families who are seen as acting on behalf of the Chinese Communist Party. Threatening regional stability. In response, the Chinese embassy in Washington has criticized the move, saying it goes against the principles of sovereign equality and non-interference. They also argued that China's cooperation has benefited local economies. The U.S. has expressed concerns about China's growing influence in Latin America, traditionally within its sphere of influence. Yes. Now for this discussion, we welcome back Dr. Tomohiko Taniguchi. He's a former advisor to late Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, joins us live from Tokyo. Thank you very much, Dr. Taniguchi, for staying with us. Now, what do you think, what led to this decision by U.S.?
Well, if it is possible for the Japanese government to do the same, I would very much like to see the Japanese government doing the same. And it's been extremely difficult for the Japanese government or whichever government in the world to see who is and who is not the party member of the Chinese Communist Party. In Japan, one can guess there are thousands or even more of Chinese party members, and they are very much loyal to Beijing's directions. And so it's very much a grave national concern for Japan as well. The only thing is there aren't means with which Japan could do similarly with what Rubio says that the U.S. government is going to do.
And how should Central American countries navigate competing influence from United States and also China?
Well, it's up to the Central American governments. Well, there may be a lot of concerns to be thought about for the central government, but the fact remains that the U.S. government, Secretary Rubio, clearly expressed concerns to let members of the Chinese Communist Party come to the United States.
And does China's claim that the U.S. policy violates the UN Charter highlight a broader struggle over norms of sovereignty and non-interference? Or is it primarily a diplomatic reaction? What do you think?
Well, it may be a diplomatic reaction, but the reality is that influence operations and infiltrations into other countries by the Chinese Communist Party members have been going on for some time. By some time, I mean more than a decade. And now is the time for other countries, not just the United States, to have a second look at how the members of the Chinese Communist Party have been entering into their countries, including Japan, I mean.
Right. With that, I would like to thank Dr. Tomohiko Taniguchi for joining us from Japan and sharing that insight throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now we move on to Hong Kong. Chinese President Xi Jinping has expressed condolences over the deadly fire which broke out in a residential complex in Hong Kong's Tai Po district. Xi has extended his sympathies to the victims. He has called on Hong Kong to make every effort to contain the devastating fire that has claimed the lives of at least 44 people, with nearly 300 missing. Hong Kong police has arrested 3 men, including 2 company directors and an engineering consultant, on suspicion of manslaughter. In connection with the blaze, authorities believe that foam materials used during the renovations may have contributed to the fire's rapid spread. Let's listen in.
而喺較早前，大概凌晨2點，我哋分別喺大埔、牛頭角、新蒲崗拘捕咗3名本地嘅男子，涉嫌誤殺。而我哋警方有理由相信，有關工程公司嘅負責人嚴重疏忽，引致到今次嘅意外，亦都引致呢個火勢呢係迅速蔓延，一發不可收拾，導致一個重大嘅傷亡。
Hong Kong's Chief Executive John Lee has expressed his deep sorrow over the deadly fire at Wong Fak Court, which claimed the life of a firefighter, among others. Lee paid tribute to the bravery and selflessness of those who responded to the blaze and vowed that authorities would continue their efforts to rescue those still trapped and provide support to the affected families. Now for this discussion, we welcome Andrew K.P. Long. He's an independent China strategist, joins us live from Hong Kong. Thank you very much, Andrew, for joining us today. I'm glad you're safe over there. What more can you tell us about what is happening, and what do you think has led to this huge fire?
Well, this unfortunate fire has been described as the greatest disaster that has caused the most number of deaths and human suffering since the Second World War in Hong Kong. Let's not forget that we are talking about 8 residential blocks involving 2,000 different flats or families. And these blocks are separated by a space. Now, for the fire to spread so quickly, engulfing all the 8 blocks very quickly, and the fire had been burning for 20 hours, and a lot of the people were just locked. They could not escape because they were high up. And then the police, of course, conducted investigations and found suspicious fire inflammable styrofoams stuck in the air ducts on every floor of some of the blocks. Now, why this happened is still being investigated, but nevertheless, it's a huge disaster. And the whole Hong Kong government have been mobilized. Everything else have been called to a stop, including the all-important Legislative Council elections coming up in a number of weeks. And that's why President Xi has expressed these condolences, and likewise all the Hong Kong people. A number of efforts, civil society efforts have been mobilized to come to the help of the aggrieved families facing this unfortunate accident. Some of them have lost almost all the members of the families so close to Christmas. I mean, it's really the largest disaster. Let's not forget that that area concerned is north of Hong Kong. Hong Kong is a very dense population, 7.5 million citizens, in an area of something like 2,000 square kilometers. But then half the Hong Kong is designated country parks. That makes the area even more congested in the residential areas. And of course, the Hong Kong is divided into essentially 2 parts, separated by a beautiful harbor. I'm in the south of the island, separated by the harbor, so I'm pretty safe. But then these poor families facing such this sudden disaster deserve all our condolences.
Yes, indeed. I'm glad you're staying safe, but we do send our condolences. Andrew, what are the changes that are required? You know, I was reading about this incident, and it highlighted the bamboo scaffolding that has been used for decades and Hong Kong and also mainland China. People have pointed out, but they were silenced or ignored. Do you think these things led to this big incident?
Well, this bamboo scaffolding has been used for so long without any problem because they are quite highly suitable to Hong Kong's high rises and many of the cities. But what caused this fire is really this canopies surrounding the this block of flats. And then preliminary investigations revealed that their material may not comply with full fire retardant material, because when these blocks are under renovation, so they're covered by these canopies, and if these canopies materials are highly inflammable, and that could cause a problem, because as I mentioned before, these blocks are separated by the space, and then all these 8 blocks are covered by canopies. But worse still, suspicious highly fire inflammable styrofoams were found stuck in the air ducts on each and every floor in these apartment buildings. It sounds suspicious to me, but that's being investigated. I think that blaming on the scaffolding is really a red herring.
Right. Thank you for bringing the focus back to the central issue. Thank you very much, Andrew K.P. Long, for joining us and sharing that insight from Hong Kong. Now we move on to our next news. India has lodged a strong protest with China after an Indian citizen was detained at Shanghai airport in what New Delhi calls an arbitrary and unhelpful action. According to reports, the traveler is a UK-based woman born in Arunachal Pradesh, who was told her Indian passport was invalid, held for 18 hours, and then prevented from boarding her onward flight to Japan. China claims Arunachal Pradesh, which it calls Jiangnan, as its own territory, a claim India firmly rejects. New Delhi says the incident violates international air travel conventions and undermines efforts by both sides to rebuild trust. Beijing insists the checks were conducted according to law. This comes as the two Asian giants cautiously try to mend ties after years of tension, including a deadly 2020 border clash in the Himalayas. Now for this discussion, we welcome former Ambassador Suresh Goyal. Thank you for joining us, Ambassador.
Good morning.
Good morning. Looking at this, how does this incident impact this broader diplomatic effort that's been ongoing between India and China, trying to rebuild trust?
A difficult question, really. I thought you would ask me about whether the position taken by China is...
You can go on with that if you want. Yeah,
okay.
Sure.
No, let me answer your question first.
Okay.
It's an important issue. Look, we all know, the government of India knows that there is a difference in positions of India and China on certain boundaries or certain portions of boundaries. And Arunachal Pradesh is one of them, where China has laid claim on the state, all of the states really, from 1962 onwards, in fact even before. So there is a dispute over the boundary, and because of this dispute, what China has been doing is that the passports issued with a domicile as Arunachal Pradesh, Indian passports issued, they don't accept them. That is true. But then what happens is that we have taken this up and we have found a modus operandi to allow people from Arunachal Pradesh to travel to China for various kinds of work. Now, what happens in this case is that he was traveling from Japan or one country to the other, really, I forget the other one, and he was just transiting through Shanghai. Normally, these kind of immigration checks, custom checks do not take place when you are in transit. they are allowed to transit. And some countries say that up to 24 hours, there is no problem. Beyond 24 hours, you need to clear the immigration to be able to enter China. In this case, China itself has basically gone against its own rules, where for 24 hours, a person can pass through the airport without any difficulty, without any issues with the passport, etc., etc. So for various reasons, China has, on its own, defied or actually negated its own rule. Now, the issue really is that China, because of the difference between India and China on the boundary, has taken this position. What does India do? I think diplomatically, we need to be prepared to see that China is not going to relent on these issues, even if there is an express keenness to develop relations in economic areas, trade, etc., cultural areas. The willingness to let it go on percolate to the issues where they have their own views may be difficult. So we need to do two things, really speaking. One, that we should not think that just if the relations between India and China improve in the areas of trade, economics, etc., but there is an equal willingness on both sides to do so, it is not going to change the views or the perceptions of China on critical issues like boundary. We have to be prepared to that even after improvement of relations, differences on the boundary can cause problems in future. That is number one. And number two, while developing relations in silos, the only way we can actually let Chinese know how it actually is a problem is basically a reciprocal action. Reciprocity in diplomatic areas, in political areas is well known. And I think they will know that yes, there are issues on our sides also, and that we can actually use those issues also, which can create problem for their citizens, so that they know how bad it is.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for highlighting that and giving 3 points on how India can react to this. Thank you very much. With that, I would like to thank Ambassador Suresh Goyal for sharing that insight from New Delhi. Now we have another breaking news. 2 National Guard members are in a critical condition after they were shot in Washington, D.C., as per reports. The suspect is an Afghan national, Rahmanullah Lakhanwal, who entered the U.S. in 2021. U.S. President Trump, while giving information on the shooting, has said that the suspect was also shot during the incident and taken to hospital. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth says Trump has asked him to send 500 additional National Guard troops to Washington, D.C. after this attack. Now we move on back to Asia. A bipartisan group of U.S. lawmakers is urging Donald Trump's administration to reject Myanmar's elections next month, calling it a sham. This comes days after the administration cited the country's electoral progress as grounds to remove legal protections for Myanmar nationals in the U.S. The lawmakers warned that the December 28th elections are designed to manufacture legitimacy for the China-backed junta after its 2021 coup and ongoing campaign of violence against the Burmese people. The junta has struggled to control territory in the years since, even with China and Russia's military and political support. Lawmakers have also said that the Myanmar citizens have resisted the junta's rule, which dissolved political parties in 2023 and persecuted state officials previously elected in 2020, at great risk of death, imprisonment, and torture. And that's a wrap on the China Report. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.